Hi, I'm Sam Hunter of Hunter's Design Studio, and we're going to talk about fabric organization today. So I'm going to show you how I do this in my studio. And obviously, your mileage may vary, and your solution might work better for you. I'm going to talk about why I've chosen this solution and how it works for how my brain sees things. Okay, this is the John Axel series of uh, drawers, and it's the bit that holds the drawers, like the rack, and the drawers, which come in two different ways. One of them is this finer mesh, and one is a wider wire basket that kind of lets everything hang out, so I don't care for it. And then you buy this little topper separately. This clips on. I'm not going to probably be able to unclip it for you. Little studs on the corners here. So if you wanted to, you could take this and stack them and go all the way up to here. I wouldn't like trying to find things up there, so I use it this way, and as you can see, it gives me a whole nother chunk of surface in my studio that works well. So the next question is, how do you figure out how to organize your fabric? Like what's the important hierarchy that goes on for you? So for me, it's first quilting cotton, and then it is bottom weight or linen weight or dress weight, or this is furniture weight fabric, and then hand dyeds and odds and ends and whatnot. So this bit over here has a lot more to do with garments and fabrics that I might not necessarily use for quilting, but I might use them for bag making, so on and so forth. So then I've got quilting fabric. So my quilting fabric is here. And yes, I'm a weirdo. If my drawers get too full, I destash my fabric. I don't really allow myself to have more fabric than fits in this space. I found it actually counterproductive to the way I think. It overwhelms me to have far too much going on. So, organizing wise, what's next? Solids, prints. These are specific styles of prints or genres of prints, and then kind of more blenders. I'm not a big print person. I'm also not much of a scrap person. I have a friend who is very much a scrap person, and I adopt all of my scraps towards her. I've tried so many times to hold on to my scraps and think that I'm a scrap quilter, and I am not. So it just doesn't work for me. Solids. Okay. So in color order, but not in manufacturer order. So I have every manufacturer's solids represented in here, and it's loosely done in a color wheel that works for me. We're going to talk a little bit more later about why stuff goes on the sides in my bins. Okay, so blues, the violets and pinks kind of come around to here. Greens to blues, blues, grays, browns, neutrals. It's always hard to know what to do with some of the neutrals. Like, does brown go next to orange and red, or does it go with beige and black and gray? I don't know. I don't use a lot of brown. What's this top one? This is a project I'm working on, so everything that I need for that project is in this drawer. I don't mark the solids. My way of marking things is on index cards. So this is a quilt pattern that's in development. It's called Atomic Avenue. And I will put an index card in something, but as you can see on this mesh, it's not very readable. Now, do I have a label maker? Yes. Have I tried labeling the tops of these? Yes. It's too small to read. It upsets me, so I don't do it. I kind of know where everything is. This is another collection of fabrics that I've just held them together. I don't quite know what I'm going to do with them yet. These are all black and white modern batiks from Hoffman, the Me and You series. I didn't break them up in any other way. To me, they're going to be a quilt. I don't quite know which one yet. I have everything that in today's parlance would be called low volume. Anything that's on a white or a beige, I tend to like whites, not creams. You can see up here, there's not a lot of cream going on. A little bit of color on whites. Mostly white background fabric lives up in this one. I have a thing for fabrics that have letters on them. Letters, words, numbers, typewriters. To me, that makes sense that typewriter fabric would be in with the letters. So a little bit of, I believe this is early Melody Miller of Ruby Star when she was doing her typewriters. I just love them. They're really fun. Next up, black and white. Got a lot of black and white. And as you can see, I'm a little bit organized by, these are darker, these are lighter. But the ones at the front obviously came out of this drawer and got stuffed back in here at some point. And maybe when they bother me, I will reintegrate them a little bit more like that. And I also have the big pieces at the back. These fabrics here, I make zippy pouches for all the people that come on my European tours. So I have French fleur-de-lis fabric, I have fabric that looks like London, I have fabric that looks like Paris. And then after those blacks, I have the grays. I tend to use a lot of black, white, gray in places. Next up, the whites and the creams and the beiges. So I've got my white on whites in here, and the little spots and little stripes, maybe a little sparkle. And on the bottom, oh, these are various chunks of things I've collected for backs. Yes, that is an IKEA duvet cover. If you need a cheap back, get a duvet cover from IKEA and split it. You need two of them?
No, you'll get two backs, right?
You'll get two backs, yeah. And then we have my beloved orange stash. More golden and lights. More true orange to red in here. And then we go down the blenders. Don't really have a lot of blenders. It's kind of like all in one drawer. Had a good clean out in here a while back. Wasn't really using them. And again, this is another IKEA sheet or duvet that will become a back. Why is it in this drawer? I'm not sure. It should probably be in that one. Might leave it out, put it away somewhere else. These are collections of blenders that all work with each other. Like, speckles, ones that look like stones, ones that have a little bit of ombre on them. And, yep, this is a stash of Halloween fabric that is supposed to turn into something one of these fine days. Been collecting a while with a friend. We're going to split the stash and make our versions of a similar quilt, but that hasn't happened yet. And so this was sort of an opportune empty drawer that seemed to be half of this and half of that will do the job. What's this one? Oh, these are conversation prints. Britain, spots, stuff that looks like Peter Max from the 60s, little sheep. Oh, Star Wars. Got some Star Wars in there. Yay, lots of Star Wars. Wonder Woman, robots, Halloween. So this is a sort of a catch-all of anything that is what we would call a conversation print or a juvenile print, perhaps. And this one is all my ombres. I like working with gelato ombres. Gelato is made by Maywood Studios. They're really, really beautiful fabrics. Really nice ombres. You can do a lot of things there. And again, this is a layer cake of African wax print fabric that was gifted to me, and it goes in here because it fits. See how that works sometimes? All right, what's going on here? Oh, odds and ends. Hand-dyed fabric, and these are all batik fabrics that I've picked up in Bali. One of these days, they might actually make a garment. That's a skirt that has the same kind of feel that I want to pattern off of it when I start using those other fabrics. We'll see. You see how that can stick up a little? It still goes down fine. What's in here? This is a garment that needs mending. And then this is indigo dyed fabric that I have created, and other lines of fabric that look like indigo. So I think these will all become something at some point. Not quite sure how, but I'm keeping them together. Makes more sense than splitting them up. Bottom weight. This is linen. And so I use most of this for bag making. I like the spots. Tend to do the spot on the bottom of the bag, and then I tend to get a little funky on the flap of the bag. And the bag that I make is my Chunky Wee bag pattern. It's a fun little pattern, doesn't have a lot of hardware. So in here is mostly denim scraps and other pieces of indigo dyed stuff. And these are all headers from Malia Kent, which is a weaving studio in Paris that we get to visit when I do my Parisian trips. And I brought all these home because I want to sort of collage them into some kind of a garment at some point. And then this is Balinese batik print with one of the Balinese gods on it, Barong. Barong, if you think Barong looks scary, that means you're up to something you shouldn't be up to. If you think he looks benign, you're doing well. And then this was another piece that I thought that maybe could turn into a garment at some point. So this is a very loosely woven cloth that's been dyed. And this is actually a vintage dyed tablecloth that I picked up in a Persian flea market that I was interested in this dot texture here as maybe something to do with garment making. So yeah, that hasn't made it out of the idea phase yet either. This is definitely the ideas. And now that I've unwound them and shown them to you, I'm not sure they're going to go back in this drawer while we're on video, but there we go. Okay. These are all, actually you could use these for home deck. You could furnish with these. These were done, I forget the name of the artist. Her website or her handle was How About Orange. And this was one of her first fabric lines. Jessica Jones, there we go. Jessica Jones. And I ended up with a handful of them. These are like bolt end cuts, a yard and a half a piece. And I keep thinking that that's going to get collaged into something really fun at some point. And then what's up here? Garment patterns. That when I make a garment, I make a muslin and I put all of the parts in a big bag so I can find them. This one's cut out that I haven't made. So these are all garments, big garment patterns. Oh, and what's this guy? Oh, this is going to be a quilt. This is going to be a 14 quilt. 14 fat quarters. Actually, I always pick 16 because then it gives you the opportunity to throw something away if you don't like it. So that's how I do all of that. And my lovely, lovely friend and assistant here just asked me a question off camera. How do I choose the fabric when I'm going to work with it? Like, do I open the drawers, take a look and say, this is all the paints I have to play with and I'm going to pull something from that? Or do I then say, oh, this would be perfect with the orange kangaroos in it or something like that? And I'm not sure I could describe the process of thinking about some of these. Oftentimes when I'm designing, I get to design with digital collections of fabric from some of our great makers. And that will guide a lot of what I can and cannot do with it because I'm limited to their palette. And occasionally I'm given access to a solids palette to go with it, where I can, bounce it off a dark or a light or add, a swatch of purple that makes better sense. Things like that. But these days when I design patterns, I either shop somewhat specifically for what I'm looking for and fill it in with the blenders and whatnot that I have. I always start here. I always start in my stash. But these days on pattern covers, the pattern designers like myself, we're finding that aiming for a more solid or blender looking pattern cover means the pattern cover doesn't get dated quite so quickly. It's very difficult for some people to see a pattern cover made out of a line of fabric and they want to make that quilt, that particular cover with that line of fabric. And that fabric just isn't available anymore. We can't get it. We're not reprinting them. And then they struggle to see beyond that particular colorway or fabric line to see through to a different vision. So we found that if we sort of take the character of the fabric out as much and leave it with the values and the colors, that makes it a little bit more accessible to people when they're trying to design their own. Uh, Everybody's stash, I mean, we all know what we like and we all pick what we love. And I have found that with my stash, obviously, I love a lot of orange. I have a lot of favorite things. But these days when I design, I'm frequently not actually using all that much of my stash unless it's the solids and the blenders. Uh, just the way it's going at the moment. And it has not always been that way. At one point in my life, I was very much a batik aficionado. I had a very, very large batik stash. The good thing about batiks is they're pretty interchangeable. As long as you get a similar color and a similar value to the one that you're seeing in the shop sampler or on the pattern cover, you're going to be fine. The thing that is challenging in any construction of a quilt is to make sure that you have your values doing their job correctly, which means you do need lightest lights, you do need darkest darks, you don't need everything in the middle. Two types of fabric that'll catch you out easily by having a lot of really beautiful fabric that tends to sit in the middle. So it goes from medium light to medium dark. One is batiks, because all the middle batiks are the really pretty ones. And believe it or not, Kay Fassett's fabric and the fabric that his fabric house makes that include Philip Jacobson, Brandon Mabley. It's very easy to pick all the really beautiful prints out of the middle with Kay. And what you end up in both cases with either the batik or the Kay, if you haven't taken a look at your high highs, light lights, and your dark darks, is you have a beautiful quilt that is mushy visually because it doesn't have the contrast that allows us to see the shapes better. So that's just a little aside about how to pick fabric. But this is where my fabric stash is at right now, and I'm pretty good with it. Am I able to wake up at 3 in the morning and start sewing? Absolutely. That's the thing that I want the most out of my stash is I don't want to have to run to the store when I have an idea. And this one covers it for me. And remember, as I said at the beginning, your mileage may vary, and the hierarchy with which you choose to organize by, it could be color, it could be print, it could be designer, it could be the texture of the fabric. But do what works best for you, okay? This is just the way I do it. Give it a try. If it doesn't work for you, give it a change. Yes, I have a stash of orange. Okay, so these drawers, this is the front of the drawer when they go in. So the way I fold my fabric, it all goes this way into the drawer. And I fold by, okay, we buy our fabric like this, right? Selvage, fold. So selvages to fold. And then if it's small like this, it's half and half. Half that way, half that way. That fits in. See that height looks pretty good there. So I've been doing it this way for years, so I kind of know what this size looks like. But when I first started out, I actually had a piece of mat board, a foam core board, that was this size in case I wanted to roll on it. But I don't keep comic book boards or any other kind of boards in my fabric because I don't want to waste the space that that takes up. And again, it's a lot of paper. So then that goes in here. If it's longer than that, I still do that fold, but then I'll roll it. And if I can find a piece of that, this is where I'm going to pull this out and we're going to find out I actually didn't do it that way. This looks pretty good. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, this is, oh, and there's bits cut out of it. So folded. Looks like I've just kept folding this one until it was the right height. But that was divisible by 2 all the way along. If it had been divisible by 5, I would have, folded 2 in, folded 2 over, things like that. Now, how do you get them in? When it starts getting tight, okay, I have enough room in my hand here to pop that down. But when it does start getting tight, what I'll do is stand it up on its edge And then look at how much more room I have. So I will do this kind of thing, put my fabric in, and then do that to get it to work. All right, now I know what you're going to ask is what about the little bits on the side? Well, these are fabrics that are no longer that wide. So they're stuck like that, and I can either get two of them in, like this drawer, okay, or a little one and some other long ones. So this is not a wasted space. You kind of go up and go around the corner. If you look at this, these are like big chunks of fabric, or specifically, like a jack-o'-lantern. Yes, I have a lot of Sam-I-Am fabric. They made it in orange. I bought it all. So this is the way that I organize. The other thing that you'll see here, yes, I love orange, but these are my more red oranges. These are my more golden oranges. These are more yellow. When it comes to the little scraps on the side, though, kind of not fussed. They go where they fit. And then there are always fabrics like this that, okay, I mean, does that go with pink or does that go with orange? Who knows? I'm more likely to use it in an orange quilt than a pink quilt. And if we're going to be mathematical about it, there's more orange than pink, so that's living in here. But that's how I organize at a drawer level. So these are mostly blenders. I don't keep a lot of big print fabric around. When I do, it's segmented out. But this is how it all folds in. And the drawer system has a little bit of room this way, so if it sticks up just a bit, it's not too much of a problem. I know you're going to ask me, how tall is that, Sam? Well, let's put a ruler on it and we'll give you that answer. It's about 5 inches tall. It could probably go up to 6 if it had to. And 4 obviously works really well. But this works well for me. I love this drawer system because I can actually pull the drawers out when I'm working on something. The last place that I keep fabric, and I realize that I tell people all the time I'm not really a scrap quilter, but this is, if I'm going to keep scraps, this is where I keep them. These are all solids, and they're all a fat quarter or less. So I design a lot of foundation paper piecing, and that can be quite pictorial. So I'm trying to draw in, color in, like a coloring book, things that have shading or whatnot. So I use all the various different solids. I have a dozen boxes of solids, mostly sorted in color order. Many of them a little bit tight in terms of putting little bits and pieces in. But pretty much everything in here is either a lovely, pristine little fat quarter, like this, okay, or some, leftover bit that I've chopped off that it made more sense that it go in this drawer than it go in the regular drawer. And the way, again, kind of like I do with the big drawers, you just pull in, make some space, and shove it on in. So I have a dozen of these, and they're in somewhat in color order. And every now and then I kind of outgrow them. I started out with 6, and then I went to 8, and then I went to 12. And at some portion, it'll probably become 14 or 16. But I do use them up because the big pieces of solids come out and they end up in here. And I find this is the shoebox size of container. They sell these as shoe boxes. I don't know what they are in quarts. It doesn't say. I don't know. How many quarts do you think we can get in there? 4? I find this a really good size. Not too heavy. Easy to knock around and easy to keep the colors somewhat segmented. If you want to see them all. Yes, I have pink in my stash. Don't tell anybody though. Yes, I have orange in my stash.